I'm Roland, 38 male. I used to be a warehouse supervisor in Detroit. 3 weeks ago, I was sleeping in my rusted-out Honda Civic behind a Walmart using newspapers to stay warm. My wife and my boss, a man I saw as a father figure, had taken everything from me. My house, my job, my savings, and even my dog. I was completely broken. Then at 2:00 a.m., my phone lit up with a message that changed my entire reality, revealing that my entire life had been built on a foundation of lies. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My name is Roland Thorne, and until a month ago I had a decent life. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I had a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs that I'd renovated with my own hands. I had a stable job as a warehouse supervisor at Belmont Logistics where I'd worked for 12 years. And I had Melody, my wife, who I'd been with since we were 17. My father, Eugene Thorne, died when I was 15. They said it was a car accident during an ice storm. He was a janitor at the local hospital, a man my mom always described as the model of quiet dignity. "Your daddy worked double shifts scrubbing operating rooms," she'd tell me, her voice soft with grief. "He used to say that honest work might not make you rich, but it lets you sleep with a clear conscience." My mom passed away 5 years ago, and I've tried to live my life by that principle. Work hard, be dependable, treat people right. It was a simple philosophy, but it was supposed to be enough. I adored Melody. She was beautiful, with a laugh that could fill a room. I spent every weekend for 3 years making our little house perfect for her. I learned how to install kitchen cabinets from YouTube. I refinished the hardwood floors on my hands and knees. I even built a deck in the backyard for our barbecues. We got our German Shepherd Duke when she said she wanted to feel safer while I worked late shifts. He grew into 90 pounds of pure loyalty, though he was terrified of thunderstorms. At work, I'd earned my way up from the floor to supervisor. My boss, Craig Belmont, had inherited the company but grown it into an empire. He was confident, successful, and respected. He took an interest in me, said I reminded him of himself when he was young. "Keep your head down, Roland," he'd tell me, "and someday you might be running a place like this yourself." I trusted him completely. That Tuesday morning, I kissed Melody goodbye while she slept and headed to the warehouse, thinking it was just another day. I had no idea that everything I believed in was about to be shattered. The warehouse was dead quiet when I pulled in at 6:00 a.m. Normally, the morning shift would be buzzing, forklifts beeping, trucks being unloaded. But the lot was empty, except for one car parked in the reserved spot by the entrance, Craig's silver Mercedes. I checked my phone, no messages about a schedule change. The silence felt wrong heavy. As I pushed through the employee entrance, my footsteps echoed in the vast, empty loading dock. Where was everyone? Then I heard it. Laughter floating down from the executive offices upstairs. It wasn't just any laugh, it was Melody's. My chest tightened. She was supposed to be asleep. She didn't even work on Tuesdays. Why was she in Craig's office at 6 in the morning? My brain was screaming at me to turn around, to pretend I heard nothing, to just go start my rounds. But my feet wouldn't stop. They carried me up the metal staircase, each step feeling like a hammer blow against my ribs. The hallway to Craig's office was dark. His door was open just a crack, spilling a thin line of light onto the carpet. It was enough. Enough to see Melody sitting on his mahogany desk, her skirt hiked up, her legs wrapped around his waist. His hands were tangled in her hair. They were so lost in each other they didn't hear me. The coffee cup I was holding slipped from my hand. It shattered on the tile floor, the sound exploding in the silence. They ripped apart. Melody's face went white, then crimson. "Roland," she stammered, sliding off the desk, pulling her skirt down. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" My voice was strangled. "Because it looks like you're with my boss." "We weren't," she started, as if that mattered. "How long?" I asked, my voice flat. She looked at Craig, who had straightened his tie, his initial shock already hardening into cold calculation. "6 months," she whispered. "Roland, I'm sorry, you were never here. Always working, always tired. Craig, he actually sees me." 6 months, every late night she claimed to be working. Every weekend Craig needed me to cover an extra shift. They had been laughing at me for half a year. I said to Craig, taking a step forward. "I trusted you." "And that's your problem, Roland." "ND," Craig sneered, stepping in front of Melody. "You're too trusting. The world doesn't reward nice guys, it rewards people who take what they want. Like another man's wife." "I didn't take anything," he said. She came to me unhappy with a husband going nowhere. Face it, Roland, you're a warehouse supervisor, that's all you'll ever be. The rage was so total I could barely breathe, but before I could move, Craig held up his hand. I wouldn't, he said, his voice dropping. You're in my office without permission, you're displaying aggressive behavior, security is on their way. He pulled out his phone. And Roland, you're fired, effective immediately, you have 10 minutes to clear out your locker. The next 3 weeks were a freefall into hell. Melody filed for divorce the very next day. Her lawyer served me papers at the cheap motel I'd rented with the last of my cash. It was obvious she'd been planning this for months. She had documentation for every penny, painting me as an absent husband. The divorce was a slaughter. The judge awarded her the house, the one I'd rebuilt. My savings account, which was joint, had been emptied the day she filed. She even got Duke claiming I worked too many hours to care for a dog. The last time I saw him, he was pawing at the car window as she drove away. Craig made good on his threat. He had blacklisted me. My 12 years of experience meant nothing. Every interview I landed went great, right up until they called my references. Then it was always the same. We've decided to go in a different direction. I sold my tools first, then my watch. Finally, I pawned my father's old wedding ring, the one I'd kept since my mom died. The pawn shop owner gave me $40 and a look of pity. By week 3, I was living in my Honda Civic. I'd park behind a Walmart, trying to find a position in the back seat that didn't make my spine scream. The security guard would tap on my window every few hours, and I'd have to drive to another spot, the humiliation burning in my gut. I was at my absolute lowest point, shivering in the 2:00 a.m. cold when my phone buzzed. I figured it was another debt collector, but the message was from an unknown number. Mr. Roland Thorne, we've been monitoring your situation. Your father wasn't who you believed. Meet us tomorrow at Garrison and Associates Law Firm, 1500 Woodward Avenue, 9:00 a.m. sharp. This concerns an inheritance. Come alone. It had to be a scam, a cruel joke. My father had been dead for 23 years. He was a janitor. What inheritance? But then I looked around at the cracked windshield of my car. What did I have left to lose? At least the office would be warm. The next morning, I put on my last clean shirt and drove downtown. The building at 1500 Woodward Avenue was a gleaming tower of glass and steel. I felt like a ghost walking through the revolving doors. Positive security would throw me out. Garrison and Associates was on the top floor. The receptionist looked up as I approached. Mr. Thorne, she asked before I even said my name. They're expecting you. She led me to a conference room that was bigger than my entire lost house, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Detroit River. 3 people in expensive suits stood as I entered. Mr. Thorne, the oldest man said, extending his hand. I'm William Garrison. This is Miss Amora Jeff, a private investigator, and Miss Rosa Delgado, our estate attorney. Please have a seat. I sat, my hands shaking. What is this? If this is a joke, I have nothing left for you to take. Miss Jeff opened a folder and slid a photograph across the table. It was my father, but not as I'd ever seen him. He was in an expensive suit standing in front of a massive industrial complex. A sign read, Reeves Industrial Solutions. That's my father, I said, my voice hoarse. But this is impossible, he was a janitor. Your father was Eugene Thorne publicly, Ms. Delgado said gently. But he was also Mitchell Reeves, the founder and sole CEO of Reeves Industrial Solutions. The company is currently valued at $73 million. The room tilted. That's impossible, I whispered. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom clipped coupons. All necessary deceptions, Garrison said. Your father was involved in classified government contract work. When credible threats were made against his family, you and your mother, he chose to die and disappear into a false identity to protect you. Miss Jeff spread more photos on the table. My father at board meetings, my father shaking hands with government officials, and then another set. It was me at my high school graduation. In the background, a janitor was sweeping, my wedding day. As Melody and I exchanged vows, a maintenance worker was fixing a door in the back of the church. My first day at Belmont, a man in coveralls was reading a newspaper in a parked van. He was there, I whispered, touching the photo from my Wii. Ding, he was always there. He never stopped watching over you, Ms. Delgado confirmed. The company has been held in trust, but your father left specific instructions. To claim your inheritance, you must complete one task. Garrison handed me a letter. I recognized the handwriting instantly and my heart stopped. It was his. Roland, my son, it began. If you're reading this, then my greatest fear and hope have both come true. Fear that you would suffer before learning the truth. Hope that suffering would teach you what comfort never could. To claim what I've built, you must first give away what I've left. The letter was specific. In Detroit, there was a community center called Haven House. It was failing, about to be foreclosed on. Save it, my father had written. Not with money you don't have yet. Save it with what you are, not what you have. You have 25 days. I looked up stunned. Haven House, the homeless shelter on the east side, Ms. Delgado clarified. It needs $50,000 to avoid foreclosure. The note is due in exactly 25 days. You cannot use any inheritance money. You have to save it using only your current resources. I burst out laughing, a bitter, harsh sound. My current resources, I have $300 to my name and I am living in my car. How am I supposed to save anything? That, Garrison said, standing up, is for you to figure out. We'll be watching, just as your father did. I drove straight to Haven House. The building was in worse shape than I'd imagined. Broken windows were patched with cardboard, the roof was leaking everywhere. Inside, I found Deacon Phillips, a 70-year-old Vietnam vet, stirring a massive pot of soup on a stove that only had 3 working burners. Help you, he grunted. I want to help you, I said. I heard you're closing. He laughed. Friday's our last day unless $50,000 falls from the sky. Banks foreclosing. That night, sitting in my car outside the shelter, I read my father's letter again. Save it with what you are. What was I? A failed husband? A fired employee? No, I was a warehouse supervisor who knew logistics. I was a man who had renovated a house with his own 2 hands. I was someone who knew how to make systems work. The next morning, I started making calls. Not for money, but for favors. I called Tommy Kowalski, one of my old shift leaders. Roland, he answered. Man, I heard what Craig did to you. That's messed up. Tommy, I need help, not for me, for Haven House. They need repairs, supplies, labor. Remember when I got your job back after you failed that drug test? There was a pause. You saved my life, Roland. What do you need? Within 3 days, I had an army. Contractors I'd helped get steady delivery work through Belmont. Electricians who remembered when I'd paid them in advance so they could make rent. Plumbers, roofers, painters, all people whose lives I'd touched, all people who owed me a favor. They descended on Haven House like angels with tool belts. The roofers worked through the night under floodlights. Electricians rewired the entire kitchen for free. Plumbers fixed every leak. By day 20, Haven House looked like a new building. It was safe, warm, and functional, but we were still $50,000 short for the bank. That's when Craig Belmont walked through the door. He looked terrible. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, not his expensive suit. His face was drawn and tired. Come to gloat, I asked, not stopping the paint roller in my hand. No, he said quietly. Melody left me yesterday, took $500,000 from my accounts and a hard drive of proprietary company information. She's threatening to expose my creative tax strategies if I don't pay more. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Karma really is something, isn't it? Roland, I was wrong, he said. About everything. I came here because I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to hire your old crew. Every single one of them told me the same thing. They were too busy helping Roland save Haven House. He looked around at the pristine new hall, at the volunteers serving food. You inspired more loyalty sleeping in your car than I've managed with all my money. He pulled a checkbook from his back pocket, wrote out a check, and tore it from the book. He set it on a paint can. It was for $50,000. Your father would be proud, he said, then turned and walked out. As Craig's Mercedes pulled away, Deacon walked over, tears streaming down his weathered face. You did it, son, he whispered, clapping me on the shoulder. You saved us. That evening, Ms. Jeff, the private investigator, appeared. Congratulations, Mr. Thorne, you fulfilled your father's requirement. But I didn't, I said, confused. Craig's money saved them, I didn't earn that. She smiled. Your father's test was to prove you understood that wealth isn't money, it's relationships, it's community. Craig only wrote that check because of who you built a network of people willing to help because you had helped them first. That's the foundation of real success. 6 months later, I stood in my father's old office, now mine. We'd rebranded the company to its real name, Thorne Industrial Solutions. My father had lived a lie to protect me, to give me a normal childhood free from the dangers of his wealth. He taught me humility through the example of a janitor, even if that example was a fiction. Haven House now runs on a perpetual endowment from the company. Deacon sends me photos every week, families eating hot meals, kids in the new after-school program. Half of the warehouse workers who helped me renovate it now work for me at Thorn Industrial at triple their old wages. I still have my old Honda Civic. It sits in my new garage, a constant reminder of where I came from. Duke is back home, too. I won full custody after proving Melody had abandoned him at a shelter when Craig got tired of dog hair on his expensive suits. He's older now, but he sleeps at the foot of my bed every night. My father left one final video, recorded just before his death. In it, he looked nothing like the janitor I remembered, but exactly like the father I'd always needed. Roland, he said, his voice weak but clear. I gave you poverty so you could understand wealth. I gave you anonymity so you could understand influence. I gave you law so you could understand what's truly valuable. Any billionaire can leave money to his children. I left you something more. The knowledge that your worth was never in your wallet. It was in your willingness to help Tommy Kowalski when he was down. It was in your capacity to rebuild after losing everything. The money is just a tool, son. You are the fortune I'm leaving this world. I still have that 2:00 a.m. text message saved on my phone. When the multi-million-dollar decisions feel overwhelming, I read it and remember. Those 3 weeks sleeping in my car taught me more about success than 12 years of steady paychecks ever did. True wealth isn't measured in what you have, but in what you can rebuild.